Veterans Awareness Program. And we have today
Mr. Sam?
Mr. Sam, sorry about that, here to interview. He's a World War II veteran. So, did you have any family, like, enlisted in the service with you?
Yes, my wife is with me, and of course, we have our daughter that lives down here on Longboat Key. And I don't know whether Lou explained it to you, but my grandson, Harrison Sanborn, volunteered me. And I think he knows something because he took off and I'm here. And I have a granddaughter that is his sister. And we love the devil out of him because we miss him because I'm from New Jersey. And we get down there as often as we can. My visits down here are exactly that, visits, not vacation anymore. I used to love to come down here, and now it's just because of a visit.
Sir, can you tell us how you got, what prompted you to go into the service? Were you drafted? Did you join? Why don't you just take the kids there, try to understand how it was at that time in your life, sir?
Let me handle that. In 1942, I graduated from high school. And in those years, things were tough. I mean, you couldn't get a job, you couldn't buy a job. But the war had just begun, if you recall, in December 1941. And couldn't buy a job because if you went to these factories that were producing armaments for the Army or Navy, they said, we can't train you now because you're draft bait. That's what we used to be called, draft bait. And a friend of mine came to me and he said, look, he said, Fort Dix is down a road. It was about 15 miles away from me in New Jersey, and they're hiring. Let's go see if we can get a job as a truck driver. And I said, well, okay, I'll go with you. I go down there, he gets a job as a truck driver, and because of my education and courses that I took in high school, they said I would be good in finance, division in post-finance. And that's where I ended up. And I knew I was going to be drafted, but all my neighbors and the kids I grew up with, they were either being called, joined up, or went to their draft board and said, look, take me in with the next go-round. And that's what I did. Only after I had spoken to Colonel Heineke, a full-bird colonel. He was a West Point graduate, and he was the head of the post-finance, educated man. I said, Colonel, can I tell the draft board for me to come in sooner? And would you request for me to stay at Fort Dix, and I'll be in the service, and man, I'll come home every night. He says, son, don't worry about it. He says, go to your draft board and tell them you want to go in, and I'll take care of it. But let me know when you're at the reception place.
Well, do I see this going wrong here?
That's a volunteer. That's the second volunteer, except with my grandson. I get inducted. I go to the center, get my clothing, and the first thing I do, I go to my sergeant, and I say to him, could I have permission to go see, Colonel Heineke? And he said, sure. So I go to Colonel Heineke, and he recognized me. I give him the big salute, that a colonel deserves, a little private like me. And he recognized me, and he says, you go back to your center, and he says, I'll call for you. Well, the call never came. I found myself on a train going to Alabama for basic infantry training. And that's where I started. And I said, no more volunteering for me. From there, I loved soldiering, but I didn't want to go overseas and, dodge bullets. So I said, maybe what I can do is request to go into the Army Air Corps. It was the Army Air Corps then and not the Air Force. And I took the test and I took a physical. And in a week, they called me up and says, all the pilot programs are shut down. I said, well, then, I'll go in as a bombardier. All the programs are shut down. Well, then I'll go in as a navigator. All the programs are shut down because, the war was starting to phase down. And a couple of guys said to me who had the same thoughts in their mind, not to go overseas, said to me, let's try the airborne. And I said, you nuts? I ain't jumping out of no plane. I don't care. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to do that. Well, some of them joined up. And I said, there's one more shot that I have, and that's to inquire about the ski patrol. A non-skier was going to get on skis and go up a mountain and then come down a mountain. And they said, well, you go back to your outfit and we'll call for you. And I was on my way to California, never got the call, and I'm glad today because the outfit I was going to join with the ski patrol was formed to the 10th Mountain Division, 100% casualties in Italy. And I'm glad, this day that I didn't. But let me say this. You guys know what a DI is. Drill instructor. Some people call it something else. He was a bastard, okay?
That's his job.
But, and don't forget to take this home, that I said what I said, but he was the greatest guy in my life. He showed me how to survive, and that's why I'm 81 years old today. I listened to him because I knew he knew. I thought I knew a lot. At your age, you guys think you know everything. But let me tell you something. You don't, because there's guys like me and Lou that are around that know just a little more, only because we've been around. So when the guy tells you to do something, especially where he's experienced, you better listen to him. Take that message home. Not that I use the B word. I mean, I don't like to use that word, and I'm sorry that I offended you. But if you're in this kind of program, you're going to hear a lot of other words that you may not be accustomed to. Well, anyway, I was off to California, and I ended up at. Let me see, where did I end up? In California on the beach. I mean, it was a lovely post. It was like a country club. And then I ended up at Angel Island and then overseas. I went overseas. I went to Australia, found my way going to New Guinea, made 2 landings, one in Hollandia, one on the island of Biak. Lived on the island of Biak for about 8 months, and that was like 2 degrees below the equator. It was a little warm, like it got maybe to 105 at night. Had to be careful with mosquitoes because at that time they had the mosquito, Anopheles mosquito that carried malaria. I had malaria. I had dengue. I had impetigo. I had impetigo so severe up in my armpits, in the crotch, in the butt for 18 months. I'd go to sick bay in the morning. What do you want on today? Red? Yeah, give me red. What do you want on today? Black? Give me black. And it would never go away. As soon as the impetigo blistered and it weeped, it just spread. However, when I got to Japan, it just disappeared overnight. Any questions? And then give me, yes, sir.
What branch of service were you in?
Infantry. I joined as a replacement the 41st Infantry Division, which comprised of a regiment of Montana, a regiment of Washington State, regiment of Oregon. It was that composition. That was the first regiment that left the United States to go to Australia to engage the Japanese, and I was replacement with them.
When you went to mainland Japan, Mr. Sam, where did you go at in mainland Japan? You remember?
Let me put it this way. Like Lou said, there's not going to be many of us left because I think the veterans are dying like 3,000 a day. But I had an opportunity to meet with Jesse Owens. You guys know who Jesse Owens is? I met him in Atlantic City and drove him from Atlantic City to Trenton so he could catch a train and go into New York. And I thought it was a wonderful, way that I would meet somebody. You can go home and tell your parents that you met a guy today, and there's not many of us left that, and I get chills when I say it, that were first troops in Hiroshima. They were still digging out bodies when I got there. Now, that was where the first atomic bomb was dropped. And it's an experience that I won't forget. We went into town and there was nothing but rubble. And that's the experience I had in Japan. I spent like 5 months in Japan.
Yeah, you guys have to understand that what a deal that is Japan had just been defeated, which was unconquerable, unfathomable to the Japanese people. The emperor admitted defeat. And then we Americans, General MacArthur's army and that division went in and occupied Japan. We didn't know as Americans at that time frame, there was lots of thoughts that when those guys landed, that they would just be swallowed up by the Japanese, that they would be interned, imprisoned, and it was going to be a trick. And that was, imagine being there into a country, it'd be like a 5,000 Japanese showing up tomorrow in New York City because Japan now owns America. Overnight, just like that. Imagine being part of that. And Jesse Owens was maybe the most famous Olympian that's ever been in America. He was a black athlete that was an incredible Olympian that we sent to Munich, Germany while Hitler had hosted the Olympics. And everyone knew that Hitler did not like blacks, all right? And Jesse Owens won the gold medal and got up on right there in Nazi Germany, inside the Nazi piece, right there in front of Hitler. Jesse Owens took the stand and get the gold medal and became an incredibly famous American and was a great man after that time. And Mr. Sam had the opportunity to meet him. That's pretty small, pretty big accomplishment.
Now, you fellows watch a lot of TV and probably movies, and you've probably seen some war stories or maybe some old-time battles of Rome and Egypt. Another incredible thing for me is when we marched into Japan, we had full field packs. We had bandoliers of ammunition across our chest with a rifle. And I was happy that when we walked, the Japanese were at attention with their hands behind their back, but not facing us as we walked through, because of the shame that was brought upon them, because they weren't supposed to lose that war. And I was impressed that they stayed at attention for hours as we walked by. As conqueror, and that's how I feel, as conqueror, because we were sent over there for a mission, and the mission was accomplished. Not these half-assed missions we talk about now, like let's declare we're winners and go home. I mean, that to me is a no-no. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's perfect. I can't even fathom. I've never, in my years of being with the service, I never met anyone that marched in the occupation of Japan. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. And he's right to be a conqueror. It's like an old-time movie. That's neat. That happened in a lifetime right there.
But was I a good soldier? Yeah, I think so. Would I volunteer? Yeah, I think so. And there's certain things that you would volunteer for. KP, no. Guard duty, no. But a mission that, that maybe I can handle and accomplish and be successful, absolutely. I go around saying, no, I won't volunteer for anything. Because you volunteer in the Army, man, the sergeant would come out to the parade ground and says, I need 6 volunteers, step forward, right? I used to step back, and they ain't volunteering for nothing. I'm sorry, go ahead, is there another questions?
Do you have friends that you stay in contact with at all? Anybody still?
I have, there's 3 of us left in our immediate group. There's one guy in Oregon, one guy in Washington, and me. And that's it from that group. My best friend just passed away a year ago in May. And I can tell you a story about him. If you recall, I don't know that you students do, but there was one time when you were in the South Pacific that you were prone to malaria, and you had to take quinine in order to, counteract malaria. Because if you got that fever, man, you were sick. And at the time, they changed from quinine to Atibrin. Atibrin was a medicine that was yellow like those wires. And it made your skin as yellow as those wires if you were on it any length of time. And this Charlie Peterson was court-martialed for not taking Atibrin. And it got so bad that what guys were doing, you get in line at lunchtime, you give your name, they would put Atibrin in your hand, you threw it in your mouth, you took a cup, you showed the cup, you showed your hand, and you walked away. Well, he was court-martialed for not taking it that day. And I was his witness that he did take it. And of course, he beat the rap. But it was so that guys would rather have malaria than be in combat positions. And I had it, and fortunately, it passed me up now. I don't know whether I'll ever get it. But I was at a point that I could not donate blood because it was in my system.
When you were sick overseas, did you lose a lot of weight?
If you got diarrhea or dysentery, that's another story. we were told, and this sergeant that I called a B said, when you're overseas, never touch any foreign foods that is not cooked by your company. And foolishly, when I'm over there, I run into in Japan now, I run into a chick who was born in Hawaii. Her parents took her back to Japan, and she got stuck over there with her father when the war broke out. They made her an interpreter for the company. And she and I sort of dated. And now she wants me to meet her parents. And I said, okay, I'll meet them. And we went out towards Hiroshima, and we parked the Jeep. We went into the house, met her parents, father and mother, who, were very disciplined at that time, all that bowing stuff. And the mother comes out with rice patties. And I said to the girl, I said, no, there's no way that I'm going to touch that. Yeah, but you're going to dishonor my parents. No way am I going to touch it. Yeah, but, they'll feel bad, and the only American that's ever been here, and we're really not Japanese. We're, Hawaiians and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm not going to touch it. But I did. I immediately got dysentery, and it lasted 8 months. I was discharged out of service and still had it 8 months after I was discharged. And that was a lesson that I should have listened to that B-man, and I didn't. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
Yeah, how long were you in mainland Japan, sir?
I would say September, 6 months.
I've never talked to anyone that was there in Hiroshima afterwards. Was the devastation just incredible?
Incredible. But there again, sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes I don't believe my country. I don't believe the guys that are giving out information now. They used to say to me, listen to the radio, and I'd hear MacArthur's headquarters in Brisbane, Australia. We sent 200 bombers over Balikpapan and Borneo, and they all returned. Well, they used to take off from a field across from me, and when they were coming in, they were all shot up. They were, crashing because they were shot up, and they lied. And therefore, sometimes I don't believe my government. But if you're going to be in service, I guess you salute the guy above you, and he salutes the guy above him. Then when you retire, you tell the truth, like the generals are doing now. Somebody had a question.
Where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor, and how did that make you feel? The bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Yes, sir. How old were you? What were you doing? And how did you feel about all that?
I was in high school. I was in high school. I went to the movies that Sunday afternoon, and I was prone to listening to the Hawaiian Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Honolulu on a Sunday morning, every Sunday morning, with that guitar music, the Hawaiian music. And this Sunday it didn't come on, but I went to the movies. When I got out of the movies, I'd heard that Pearl Harbor was bombed, and that's the first I heard of it. The next day, we all went to class, and that's when the principal got on the stage and said that we were bombed, and that Roosevelt had addressed the nation, and called it the Day of Infamy.
Were you angry?
Beg your pardon?
Were you angry? Were you angry?
Was I angry? I don't think so. You see, at 17, you don't know what's going on. It didn't mean anything to me. Pearl Harbor, you know. Today, it bothers me because I know more. I know what can happen. I know that kids like you are going to be called up. If things remain the same over in the Middle East right now, you guys are going to go. Some of you are going to get deferments, but some of you are going to volunteer, and some of you are going to, be drafted, but you're going to go. And, you got to say to yourself, well, what for? Do those people really want us over there? And I'm wondering, do they want you? I don't think so. It's like going to the islands for vacation. Come on down, but better yet, stay home, just send your money.
Did you, you mentioned that you dated the Japanese girl, so you weren't married while you were in
Oh, no.
were you able to communicate with home very well through letters, or was your mail censored?
Well, you know what we did? We had that mail where you wrote.
Mail?
No, it was photo mail.
Okay, yes.
And what they used to do was photocopy and send that photo to you. But strangely, I don't know what rank you held.
I retired as a first sergeant.
First sergeant?
Yes.
Well, I retired as staff. But first sergeants used to look at my letters, because everything was looked at, and you're not supposed to write secrets back home. And if he didn't like anything, he'd ship it back to you. But he knew what was going on in the company to the minute details. And we got over it, didn't matter. Anything else?
Did you suffer any effects from the atomic bomb when you were in Japan?
No, you see, for years I went to the association that got together where every year they went to a different place all over the United States. And a couple of times the association said, let me know where you were, at what time, because we got some word that, cancer is broken out, with members of the 41st Infantry Division. But there was no real connection between that and us, we were lucky. Yeah. And at 81, I ain't got it. And I'm glad I don't have it.
When you came home from your tour overseas, was that it? You came home and then were discharged? But when you finished your tour in Japan and you got out, you came home? Did you come home as a group or an individual? Did you come home?
No, we came home with a group. Came home with a group, and we went to Eatontown, New Jersey, and discharged from there, and that was it. Thanks, boys. Goodbye. And that was it. I must say, though, being in service, I got a college education from it. Free. Everything was paid for. And I got a degree, and otherwise I could have never gone to college. I came from a poor family. I knew my parents couldn't afford to send me, so I didn't even think of going to school. But the Army, no matter how much time you put in, the GI Bill was there for you, which was a good thing. And they're the kind of programs I'd like the United States to keep doing, not send money over to Iraq.
And currently now, when I was on active duty, the Marine Corps would pay for 100% of my education for me to go to college. And they did.
What kind of training you guys taken here?
Physical fitness.
What?
Presidential physical fitness.
You mean what subsequent training they do in the class?
No, your group.
They do marksmanship. They've done marksmanship this year. They've done a extensive first aid and CPR course. So all of them, to include Harrison, are now CPR qualified. They've done a fair amount of marksmanship this year. Half the group has been doing aviation, where they've been flying to get their private pilot's license. They've done a lot of public speaking amongst themselves. The things that young leaders, the same thing that NCOs learn in the military, are the thing they've learned about. We've had a lot of moral and ethical discussions that you can't have in math class or science class or history class. We have an opportunity to do those things here. So we've worked a lot of that. We're going to do before the end of the school year, those that are interested will actually do a one-day introduction to scuba exercise for diving. There's been a lot of things. We've done a lot of community service. We work with the American Legion currently. They've certainly put the hours in learning how to drill to march in the Veterans Day Parade. And again, this Saturday night, they march in the Fernando de Soto Parade in front of 250,000 people.
Who here is good at close order drill?
I think several of
Are
you
you?
are very good at it.
Huh?
I think several of y'all are very good at it.
You can go through the cadence and put the squads in different positions and then bring them back.
All the time. We've worked with it all year.
I used to love to do that. And guys used to wait until I screwed up, and I never gave them the opportunity. I loved the cadence count and put them all over the field and then bring them all back.
We do it a lot now, and I think it's surprising as they get out there. We march usually once or twice a week, and as they get out there, some of them have rose to the top. And I think everybody else marches and waits to see who's going to make a mistake also. So 60 years can go by and some things don't change. Yeah, they're actually, between now and the end of the school year, we just received our parade rifles, and they're learning manual of arms to march with rifles now. So that's going to be a lot of work.
Speaking of rifles, would you guys believe that when we first went into basic training, that we didn't have a rifle, we had broomsticks? Can you believe that? A country as wealthy as the United States didn't have enough rifles to give to their troops. And that was early on. Broomsticks. And I don't know who in the hell you can kill with a broomstick. But it was the truth.
Yeah, did you do a lot of marksmanship in basic training? Is that where you learned your marksmanship at? Is it the first time you had done marksmanship?
I hated guns, still do, because most of the people that own a rifle don't know what to do with it, or they know what to do with it, but they're not cautious. You know, speaking, I say I was a good soldier, but I did things to annoy the sergeant. And if you're not one of those, you haven't been in service. I remember a sergeant was on my case in basic training. And I said to him, "I'm going to get you." He said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am." And it was toward the end of the basic training when we had regimental parade. You go before all the big shots. Well, I don't need to tell you. And I figured this is the time I'm going to get the sergeant. And you know what I did? Can you imagine what I did?
I can't even imagine.
I went out of step and in step and out of step to make the lines keep on shuffling. And instead of marching straight through, it was like this. And the sergeant took holy hell because he couldn't keep his troops on an even keel. And after that, I said, I got you. And I did.
Response to that was?
It was easy. I'd shuffle in step, and then I'd shuffle out of step. And everybody in back of me is trying to keep up with the shuffle.
That's what, actually on Friday, that's what we'll see. We're going to see the regimental parade. this Friday at the parade ground at Paris Island. With with the senator from North Carolina as the reviewing officer. And so we'll be there. These guys will get their first experience of the things that you're talking about now. They're gonna see basic training as a civilian and have that opportunity to look and see these young lads and lasses getting off the bus and getting on the yellow footprints and the drill instructors taking them from point A to point B, learning how to march.
You know, I don't want to leave here to allow you to go home to think that I wasn't scared. I was scared. There were times I was so scared that I didn't think I was behaving correctly. During Japanese air raids, they'd come over with their little, pup planes, but try to bomb the hell out of you. And on the island of Biak, it was nothing but coral rock. People, the sergeant used to say, you gotta dig a foxhole. You couldn't dig in coral rock. And when you went to your foxhole, what you hugged is as close to the edge. You hugged the coral rock and hope that, a bomb wouldn't land on you. And that's scary. And Christmas Day of 44, I'm in my tent. It's like 100 degrees out, and I hear all this commotion outside my tent. And I'm saying, God, what the heck is that? I looked in the other tent, and the guy says, oh, they're Japanese. They came down and stole, and they used to come down and steal clothing, food, and then run up to their foxholes in the craters. And a lot of guys says, boy, let's go after them. Nah, I ain't going after them. All they want is some food. I'm not going to go after them and get waylaid, especially if they're doing that so you can chase them. And then when you chase them, they ambush you. No, I'm not going to do that. They were scary times.
I understand. I have a standard response when young people ask me, what's it feel like to be shot at? I simply tell them, well, feel the buttons on the front of your shirt? I always felt like the buttons on my shirt kept me from getting any lower to the ground at that time frame. If I would have found anything you could get at to make sure you stay out of harm's way.
But there were good times for me. When I got to the Philippines, I thought I could be relaxed, and I bartered for a monkey. Okay? That was my child. Gave me a lot of love, a lot of relaxation. If I went on a detail, I come back and she was waiting for me. And it was heartbreaking when I had to leave her to go to Japan. But there are incidents like that are great.
I found in my experiences as a young man traveling all over the world, for instance, mainland Japan, the Philippines, the service gave me chances that I would have never had the rest of my life. Gave me a college education, all those things, and yet I came from 2 generations after you. And you guys have to understand that Mr. Sam's generation has been considered and it's called and referred to now as the greatest generation. I mean, they basically saved the world. And those of you that were here on Friday and heard that paper that I read, that's the generation we're talking about that went and did this. And that is the beginning of the baby boomer generation that changed economics in America so much because of when they came home, the economic changes that those many men coming home from the war, how it changed the whole landscape of American economics. So it's really a unique opportunity to sit and listen to somebody recount their thoughts and memories of those times. And it's quite an experience. I can't imagine what it was like to be with you and gentlemen your age when you were 22 and 24 and just coming home after several years of service back to America?
Like the public treat you like well, like
Beg your pardon?
when you came home from overseas, did they have like a parade?
No. I got disappointed. There was a bunch of kids when we were growing up, and you got to understand that peasants that came over from foreign countries, like my parents came over from Italy. They met here, got married here, but they were peasants, and they didn't know any better. They didn't have any contacts. Today, you're an immigrant and you got more rights than the people that have been born here. And all the families that were in my neighborhood had children and had boys, and we all went. Some into the Navy, some into the Army, some into the Air Force. And I had written home, and they said, we're going to have a big reception for you because the street is all decorated, and when you come home, you can see it because people appreciate it. And I thought, geez, that's a great, great deal. I came home late because I, was over longer than everybody else. And when I came home, the sign was down, nobody around except my mother and father and sisters. And I was disappointed at that. Let me ask you guys, if you had to go, would you go as an enlisted man or as an officer? How many officers? Let me throw in something. Guys, if you can become an officer, do. They got the special privileges. They got everything. I wanted to be an officer so bad that I would have even been a bombardier and maybe I would have jumped out of a plane if they made me an officer. I had an opportunity a couple years later when I was discharged. If you were a first three grader and you had 2 years of college, they would take you in, send you to training, and make you a second lieutenant immediately. But I had had enough of service, so I didn't do it. But by all means, I say to my grandson, go in as an officer and strive for it and learn for it and study for it. Because you'll be surprised, what a gentleman, an officer is, only because he wears the uniform. And by all means, if you can, do it.
I guess you guys have certainly heard that a few times this year, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked at length about the benefits to why you should go to college and then consider the service, because it's such a great life, such a great way to get started. You come out of college, instead of having bills behind you, you come out with a job right there waiting for you, and with your leadership ability, you can go right to the top, and you have just a better lifestyle. And a good second lieutenant's going to be paired with a what? He's going to be paired with a what? A good second lieutenant. He'll be paired with a good sergeant, and that good sergeant will be there to take care of that good second lieutenant.
You guys got to do me a favor. When you see my grandson, without him knowing that I asked you to do it, in some way, just tell him how proud I am of him for the accomplishments that 14-year-old has done so far. And I'll recognize accomplishments every day. And
It's been such a treat for me this year to be with these great. We've seen so much growth and so much potential out of so many of these guys and gals. It's got a lot of fun this year. At least I have. I've had a good time with these guys. Physical accomplishments, mental accomplishments. You know how hard it is to go out in a hot sun on a grinder and march and learn to march. And these guys have done a great job.
yeah.
All year, everything we've done has just been right at the very top. And, it's been.
Well, that brings to mind I thought I used to be a smart guy through basic training. And we used to have to do forced marches at night, full field pack and rifle. And a couple of guys said, hey, what you ought to do is, you know those 10-gallon cans that food comes in? Wrap that up and put it in your bag, and it looks like the full field pack is loaded. Except I wasn't so smart, because this one night I got the cans, and the sergeant says, we're going to sleep here out in the open. No blanket, no coat, no socks, nothing. And I froze my rear end off. So if you think sometimes you can beat the system, try it. And if you're ready to pay for the consequences, go ahead and do it.
That's a good life lesson right there. The easy way never pays off. Does anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Stan? What a treat. Yeah, Stan, I can't tell you how happy I am to have you in, and from the bottom of my heart, I've never met you before today, but you are part of the greatest generation. You saved the world. I don't know. I can't imagine what Europe would be like right now. What Asia would be like right now had you guys not gone and carried your end of the log. And you're right. That's the last time America has definitively won a battle. We definitively won. No questions. Japan surrendered unconditionally to these guys, and Germany surrendered unconditionally to these guys. They went and saved the entire world. And you guys still have some time to still meet and greet gentlemen, and there's ladies that supported it too. And you need to take that into your life and remember that. And we're very lucky to have someone like this that can come in and talk to us on a day like today. So makes my day.
Well, you say that, and I just want to stand up, and you guys are the up and coming. Guys like me are 81. I don't know whether I'm going to be around a year, 2 years, 10 years. But what I want to do is salute you guys, every one of you, because you're going to have to take over. And I appreciate the fact that you got a group of guys that are willing to do it. And I'm sure that, there are other people like you. And therefore, I thank you for, being where you are at this stage of the game. And with you, you're going to be a lieutenant, colonel, or what? General. One of the first women generals or something.
Colonel pays pretty good these days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Very much.
Now they have women generals. Yeah, we'll see a couple women colonels this week. We won't see a woman general there, but there's several women generals. They have, matter of fact, the Marine Corps has a 3-star female general. 3-star general. The military doesn't discriminate between men and women anymore. Women they have just as many important jobs as the men do.
Sergeant, that's not so. The only one court-martialed was a woman general this past time.
Yes, I saw that.
Abu Ghraib.
Yes.
They made a mockery of her.
Yeah, I saw that.
Poor soul.
She's in a very important position, so something didn't go right.
And somebody had to take the dive.
Somebody had to take the dive, so.
And she unfortunately is the one that took it.
Right. I did follow that.
And that bothered me. And my wife is incensed about why a woman with all the.
Sure.
And let me ask you something. You've been in 22 years. I remember if I was told to do something and I did not do it, I got taken care of in another way. And it was a silent way. You can't find stuff in writing in the Uniform Code of Justice or in the book that gives you, different details. But But if you don't do what they tell you, they'll make it tough for you.
Absolutely.
Then you find it that way.
And the last thing you want to ever do is end up in front of the first sergeant. If you're going to see the first sergeant, you're having a bad day, and it's going to get worse. I was a young, I was not any older than Tom in the black shirt over there. I didn't feel I was ready to go to college when I graduated high school. I was an athlete, and I was done with school for a while. I needed a break, but I was focused on going in the Marine Corps against my parents' wishes. My parents were adamant that I needed to go to college then. I wanted to enlist. I could not wait to get to Parris Island. That was my line of thinking, and I didn't listen to my parents. So I went. As soon as I graduated high school, I went to college. I went to Parris Island. And you guys are going to see this week. We're going to have a marvelous trip. But you're going to see how hard it is for those young men down there. But it carries with it honor of a lifetime, courage. They do things down there, much like I've worked hard to try to push you guys out of your little envelopes all year. You're going to see young men and young women pushed to the capacity of their envelope, farther than they knew they could accomplish it. You'll see them on Friday. I'll be surprised if you don't choke up a little bit on Friday. It's the honor that is part of that parade when they graduate and become Marines for the first time. The courage that it took. Imagine the courage in those kids right now that graduated high school last year that are down in boot camp right now. There's a pretty tough fight going on in Iraq. There's a good chance that 50% of those guys that graduate next Friday that we see are going to end up in combat this next year. So they know that. That takes enormous amounts of mental courage, moral courage, fortitude. And that's the beauty. We talk about Iraq, and I read you guys pieces, and I share with you my thoughts. And I'm a little different. I lived in Iraq until last May for 2 years. So I have a pretty decent opinion on what's going on there. But regardless, the Marines, and I'm sure it's the same with the soldiers in the Air Force and the Navy that are doing their job there, they're all happy to be there. They're honored and they're proud to be doing that. And also that those guys all learn a lot about commitment. And, I used to be asked at the end of different combatant situations that I've been in, and I'm sure it's the same for Mr. Salmon. Why did you guys do what you did? Did you do it for love of country, for mom and apple pie and all that? Yeah, you know what my answer to that is? And I'm sure you'll find the same. And what really, at the end of the day, when you're with guys and you've been in a tough situation, be it a fight, or just a tough situation, you do things for the guys that you're with. You stand tall. You gather strength from them in moments of peril. Those thoughts of home are in the back of your head, but if it's the three of us together and we're told to hold this spot, then I hold it because I don't want to let these two down. And he holds it because he doesn't want to let us two down. And she holds it because she doesn't want to let us two down. And because of that builds a cohesiveness and a bond that it's the same thing we've tried to do together this year in this group. When Cody can't remember at the beginning of the year and Max can't remember to bring the right gear. When we were supposed to go out for PT and somebody forgets their shorts. Well, after about the second or third time this happened, we started to get punished as a group. Mm. And then we learned, we're only as good as our weakest link. So we help each other out. And I know several of you all have called each other when something important was coming up and said, hey, don't forget to bring this, don't forget to bring that. Because you've learned cohesiveness and unity and teamwork. And those are just the same things that haven't changed probably in 60, 70 years. And that's why the military is such a model, a template for leadership.
Well, to give you another example, I remember just before Christmas when I was going to leave basic training, go home with a delay en route, and then go overseas. And somebody came into our barracks and stole my blouse, my parade blouse. And I go to the supply sergeant, and I said, Sergeant, somebody stole my blouse, which is a major part of the uniform. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. And he says, what are you bothering me for? He says, go get it like the guy got it from you. Okay? I don't know what you would do, but let me tell you what I did. Me and a friend of mine went to the next company. We went into these little barracks, and I saw one hanging up there. I tried a couple of them on. I tried another one on. It fit me. I said, let's go, right? Did not know that my buddy wanted a pair of civilian shoes. So he takes those. Now, the guy that I stole my blouse from, he reports it to his company commander that his blouse was stolen and somebody stole somebody's shoes, right? Who's the suspect? Me. I went to the sergeant, right? So he calls me in. He's going to court-martial me and not send me home. And I say, you SOB, you told me to do that. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Come on, Sergeant. Own up to it. All right, I'll, smooth it over.
Well, some things happen just like things that happen in school. And sometimes things have to happen for the good of a group. And that's all right. And I think how you started this is, I remember distinctly when I was a Lance Corporal and had no rank, and I had a corporal named Johnson, and Corporal Johnson was in charge of making sure our place was clean every day. Every time Corporal Johnson would say my name, he would say Gregory, and he would hit me every time. And it wasn't out of malice. He'd just be like, Gregory, go get the broom, pow, and he'd hit me. Gregory, go swab the deck, pow, and he'd hit me, in the shoulder or the arm or the back. He's a pretty big guy, and I didn't appreciate it. And I waited my time for over a year, and then I made corporal. Well, now Corporal Johnson and I were the same rank. And I remember coming out with Corporal Johnson that morning after the company commander promoted me with the first sergeant and the company commander, and I made the rank of corporal, and I was pretty happy with myself, pretty full of myself. I walked down to the barracks and walked to the back. The non-commissioned officers lived in the back, and they behind the curtain. Pulled that curtain aside like I owned the place and walked over, and Johnson was in his rack, and I said, listen, Johnson, I didn't call him Corporal Johnson, and he didn't know I was being promoted. I said, you ever lay a hand on me again, we're going to be at it. And, he wanted to get all upset for a second and saw that I was a corporal after that, and then it ended up that Corporal Johnson and I became really good friends, and we worked together for the next 18 months, actually. And that was just his way of doing things, and I guess when I was his troop, and he was the corporal, and I was the lance corporal, I worked hard. I didn't want Corporal Johnson. I just knew that if I didn't do a good job on that deck, he might come and help me get corrected. So I always kind of knew in the back of my mind I didn't want to let him down. And that was just a way of getting things done that was kind of unwritten, and things had to get done.
Yeah. The only thing I want to repeat, you guys that want to be officers in whatever outfit you go with, please do, because they get everything. To give you an example, I was on the island of Bayak, and there was nothing there. The officers got steaks. The officers got milk. The officers got soda. The officers used to send airplanes to Australia to pick up booze and beer. The officers on Saturday night used to call the local hospital on New Guinea, send 50 nurses were having a dance, and they get 50 nurses, and we poor suckers outside wishing we were inside.
Some things haven't changed, and is that right or is that fair? Not necessarily, but it's the way life. I've told you guys a lot of times this year, life's not fair.
Nah.
And you got to recognize what position you want to be in, and that's why I've talked to so many of y'all about go to college, get your education, then be an officer. Or be a reserve enlisted person while you're going to college, and then you learn the best of both worlds. Because let's face it, if Sam and I were officers, we wouldn't be that guy that leaves my troops outside while I'm in eating a steak and they're out eating baked beans. That's just not the kind of person I am, and I don't think that's the kind of person you are, and I know it's not the kind of person any of y'all are. So by by being different and being a good leader, if you choose that route, no matter what route you choose, it doesn't have to be the military, and I've told you guys a lot of times, most of you are gonna be very successful, captains of industry, and all these things. Every one of you is a leader that someday, you watch, if we were to get together 25 years from now, how successful each and every one of you is gonna be, all right? Cody's gonna take US Fence and make it international, all right? Harrison may take his cameras and be international with them. I mean, they already are international, but take it the next step further. So many of you are going to do some great things. We don't even know yet. It's hard to even fathom where you guys are going to be at. But you're going to be successful. And based on what you've learned and the time you've got to listen to gentlemen like this speak, you're going to remember, and when you have 100 employees underneath you or 500 employees underneath you, you're going to treat them right, the way that you wanted to be treated because you're a good leader. And that's important.
What you got to do, if you go into any one of the services, ask a buddy that you're going to be buddies with. And that's why I say this Sergeant B, I love the guy. Find out if a guy will throw his body on a hand grenade. And if he says jokingly no, you don't want him around. But if he says, yeah, I would, that's the guy you want on your foxhole.
My friends that I have for life that I was in combat with, I've seen them all do amazing things to take care of one another. And they're that important. That's why we ask about friends, because they're friends that I made in there in combatant situations are that important to me. The guy that I named Samuel after, who I was in combat with, my first big combatant situation, called me on the clear blue sky this morning. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's the boys?
That's great.
And that was several years ago that I haven't even seen him in a couple years right now. We just talk every couple months. Make friends of a lifetime in tough times.
Lastly, I'm gonna shut up and get out of here because you guys probably wondered how much he talks, right?
It's wonderful.
And I could stay here for days.
We could keep you here for days.
But I had an assistant manager once who was a prisoner of war of the Japanese for 38 months.